on a YouTube live here. It is the 15th of December, about 4 p.m. in the evening. I'm here out on my back porch. Give you guys a view here. It's, like I said, kind of becoming winter time here up in Snohomish, Washington. So it's about probably, I don't know, 45 degrees out, something like that. A little bit cool. Got done working out just a little bit ago, took the dogs for a walk. Got a little tri-tip that I'm cooking right now. That'll be my small dinner tonight. Had a couple steaks earlier today. And, I'm just going to sort of answer a few questions. I turned 58 on January 10th, so we're just kind of about 3 weeks out from that. And, I'm that sort of the trajectory between 58 and 60 will be mostly focused from a physical standpoint, on getting faster, getting a little bit leaner, maintaining a decent amount of strength, and my workouts will be more tailored towards being able to produce force, athleticism and force. So you see a lot of jumping and plyometric directed stuff and a lot less sort of bodybuilding stuff. A lot of people seem to think bodybuilding is the holy grail of weightlifting. And I think a lot of people that are actually athletes realize that there's a lot of ways you can lift weights. And sometimes that involves speed and momentum. And it depends on what you're trying to produce with that session. It's not about, slow contractions and, that has its place for hypertrophy and bodybuilding. But again, there's a wild world of sport-specific things that you might want to do, or even more general things that you want to do that are kind of, generally related to that. And so like I said, my emphasis will be on moving weight quickly, in a compound range. Like I said, a lot of just developing some of the tissue properties that'll be necessary for me as an old guy to be able to accelerate and move very quickly without injuring myself. And so that takes a lot of time and effort. Anyway, so if you guys want to ask any questions or anything like that, you're welcome to. It's kind of I haven't done a live in a while, so I'm not sure what the is here on YouTube here. Looks like in general, I've gotten a little bit less away from YouTube just because of the fact that I find that the platform on X tends to be maybe a better place. There's more freedom of expression. There's less likelihood for censorship, and I think that's a good place to be. Let's see. We got can't comment is commenting. I'm new to deadlifts. Give me some advice. Yeah. Well, I think that there are sort of obviously there's different technical aspects of the lift. There's different ways to do it, whether it's a sumo style or a convention style with a regular bar. A lot of people use a trap bar. I tend to alternate between the two of those. I think you have to sort of this is something where I would just look online at people that are good at deadlifting and follow some of their advice. I can certainly if we were in a position where I could demonstrate it, right? It's hard to do it from the chair, but conceptually you want to be centered over the bar. I personally like a hook grip. You might I would not be opposed to using straps when you're deadlifting. There's no shame in that. I think it's preferable to a mixed grip. I think a mixed grip where one hand is over, one hand is over, while it's often used in competition because it prevents the bar from rolling out of your hand. It sets you up for asymmetry. It sets you up for potential biceps injuries. And so I have most of my lifting career either done a double overhand hook grip. In fact, I always do that for when I competed. After a certain age, and I switched. I think probably when I was when I was about 40, I switched over to that double overhand hook grip where I used to do the mixed grip, and it has a big benefit. But you think about driving your feet through the ground. You don't want to have excessive lumbar flexion. A little bit of thoracic flexion is okay. So your upper back can be rounded a little bit. And sometimes that's actually biomechanically superior. Some of the top deadlifters in the world lifted with a rounded upper back. Guys like Ed Cohen, John Kook, they were very notorious for that, and they could pull a lot of weight because it just made the lift more efficient. There's no like one perfect way. Realize that different body types are going to favor different biomechanical efficiencies. That same thing with the squat. So don't get too hung up on there's only one way to squat correctly. I mean, your body will often dictate the correct path that it needs to take. Now there are some obviously if you're off balance or you're asymmetric and things like that, then those are problems. There's sequencing that has to occur. You don't want your hips shooting up and then turning this into a stiff leg deadlift. So there is some attempt to sort of and Olympic lifters are very good with this. When guys are doing clean pulls, they'll often the shoulders and hips will rise simultaneously, so you don't have that that sort of asynchrony there. All right. Anyway, like I said, this isn't the best forum to really discuss that, though. Okay, RGT something brew. Is there any thoughts about the chemicals they're testing to limit methane on cows? Yeah, so I made a video on that a while ago. So there's a whole host of them. There's a whole bunch of chemicals that are being used. Revero is the one that's made the news recently. I think the compound, I believe it's 3-nitroxy or nitroxypropranolol, which is the active ingredient, which is actually toxic to human beings and for a number of reasons. It's given in small amounts to the cows. Apparently doesn't really impact the cows in a negative way. It cuts down on their methane production by about 30%, which is quote unquote good for the environment. I would take issue and say maybe that's a problem or a solution to a problem that doesn't really exist. I mean, we can argue that. I don't think it'll appreciably affect the meat or the dairy in any real significant way. I would be surprised if it did. So I would I feel like that, oh my God, I've got to avoid this at all costs? No, I don't think that. But I do say it's probably an unnecessary expense being levied on the farmers and ranchers and dairymen that are doing that. So I think that is something that if the market decides we're not going to eat it, not going to consume it, it's just it's a weird situation because in one way they're saying, well, we want to keep cows around, so this is what we're going to do to save us from climate change. The other answer is, well, we're just going to kill a bunch of cows. I mean, which way do you want? Would you rather have Bovaer in your milk, or would you have dead cows and less milk available? So it's kind of a unfortunate situation that the sort of folks that are driving this climate change have a lot of power. And again, like I said, this may be a solution to which no problem truly exists. Anyway, but like I said, there's a lot of products. I mean, Frank Mittler at UC Davis has tested like algae supplements, which act in a different mechanism to blunt the methane coming out. All right, sumos feel weird. Yeah, I mean, I think conventional's fine. I've only sumoed a handful of times in my life. I think conventional is, I think it obviously targets a little bit different muscle groups a little bit differently. Sumo feels more like a squat in many ways. So I mean, I think there's nothing wrong with doing conventionals. In fact, I think some people would say that sumo isn't, some of the haters would say sumo isn't real deadlifting. So, were you able to dunk? Says the Tronics. Well, again, that's my goal for 60. I'm not there yet, so I've got 2 years yet to get there. I'm able to basically jump up and grab the rim right now. It's unfortunately right now the weather's turning crap. You're wet and rainy and slick outside. The goal I have at my house, which is right at, I think it's within a half an inch, 10 feet. I won't be able to mess with that until probably the spring of next year or something like that. But like I said, the major things that are going to allow me to do that, one, are going to be dropping, about 20 pounds, which is the last time I dunked, I was 51 years of age, and I weighed about 240. So I think I've got to get back down to that, that level, and then of course work on that. So like I said, lots of plyometrics, lots of jumping, lots of specific strength training, lots of explosive stuff, all directed at doing that. Yeah, I'm fairly confident I'll be able to do it, but I'm not in any hurry. Like I said, my goal was to do it at 60. If I do it earlier, great, that's fine. But I'm not, like I said, I'm really taking my time, building up the legs in a way that they need to be. And I am, like I said, I mean, literally, it's probably I've got to put on 2, maybe 3 inches on my vertical jump, and losing 20, 25 pounds will certainly assist in that. So anyway, I'm sure it'll happen with time. All right, you changed my dad's life about a year and a half ago. Just want to pass on and say thank you, Lulu. Well, tell your dad, well, I'm glad he's doing better, and hopefully it's for the better. And thanks for the sharing that. That's great news. Rose Smith, I take issue with humans who think they know about Earth and protecting it, and God or nature, if you will. Okay. Bill Gates is involved. I'm staying away. Yeah, I don't know that Bill Gates is directly involved with Bovaer, but he's involved with a number of these products. So maybe he's now involved in that, but I don't know that he was specifically. But yeah, I get your drift. Do you have a favorite meat that ships? Butcher Box, etc. Any recommendations? I mean, the three that I tend to utilize the most tend to be a company called Colorado Craft. Jeff Smith's the owner there, a really good guy, friend of mine. And I actually invested some money in one of their meat processing facilities, so I have a financial relationship with those guys. But they're good product. I really like it. It's a really well done product. Another company called Better Fed Beef, Max Winders is kind of the guy there. Is a co-op of about 17 families up in Minnesota. They put out a really good product. And then the Alpine Butcher, which I often use, they are out of Lowell, Massachusetts, I believe. And a guy named Tommy Doyle is a guy that runs that facility. Really good people. I mean, yeah, but like I'll be the first to admit these things aren't particularly cheap, but they're high quality. They taste great. I always get a good product. I'm always happy with that. And I'm willing to spend a little more to ensure that I enjoy what I'm eating. Not that I wouldn't enjoy. I mean, I go to Costco from time to time, and that's, in my view, that's fine meat. Nothing wrong with that. All right. And I should say I've been getting Butcher Box for years, and Butcher Box has been sending me a free box of meat every month for like the last 5 years. I mean, it's I get 16 steaks from Butcher Box every year. I usually eat some of them. My family eats a lot of them because they prefer the little bit more leaner stuff, and Butcher Box tends to be a little leaner because it tends to be grass finished. All right. Bum, 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 bum. Paul Aaron, I'm working at my 500-meter row, currently 43 in the U.S. Any tips? Yeah, as you know, I've broken world records on that event, so I'm pretty good at the 500-meter row. Assuming you're using the concept too. I don't know what your time is and what your weight class or your age category is, but with the 500-meter row, I mean, the standard rowing stroke that you might hear people talking about is really not tailored for that. I mean, your rate has to be quite high. Your rate probably for a good 500-meter row is going to need to be close to about 40 strokes per minute. That necessarily means a shorter stroke. It means probably less time to fully extend your legs before you start incorporating your back and arms. So it's a little bit compressed stroke. The way I like to approach it is I'll start out with rate 20, so 20 strokes per minute, so one stroke every 3 seconds, and I'll lean back, I'll lay back as far as I can. I'll make the stroke as long as possible, and I'll focus on getting as much power into every stroke every stroke as possible. So for instance, I can row 500 meter at 20 strokes per minute in about a minute 27, Now, as I go faster and faster, when I want to start getting closer to about 115, that stroke rate's going to go from 20 to close to 40. And so I'll stepwise bring that up, start at 20, do it a few times so I can max out what I can hit at 20, and then I might go to 24. So 24 strokes per 500 meters. And then I might bring it to 28, 32, 36, so on and so forth, until I ultimately get there. But I want to maintain and retain as much power as possible. Now, you're always going to lose some. There's going to be some efficiency in the turnaround as you get quicker and quicker, but you want to just sort of like max out what's called a stroke power index. And so that's your wattage divided by your stroke rate. That's considered your stroke power index. And so stroke power indexes, 25-ish are pretty damn good, and then you go down from there typically. I think the most I've ever hit was 27, 28 or something like that, which is just yanking, trying to break the damn machine. And then, as you get closer and closer and you lose that efficiency in your stroke gets shorter and shorter, that stroke power index necessarily gets less, and you just try to maintain as high as possible. So a lot of 500-meter rows, just do a lot of 500s, go out there, crank it out, get used to it, because it's a unique physiology. That last 100 meters just sucks really bad, but you got to get used to that and get used to the pain of that. Do it over and over and over and over again until 90% effort is easy. It's and rowing a sub one, even a challenge, but just getting to that faster, that's where the real pain and suffering starts. All right, let's see what here. Roxy Knight, is 2 turloin steaks and 6 eggs a day enough for an active 50-year-old? I don't know. I don't know how big the 2 sirloin steaks are, but it certainly could be. Could be enough. All right. JG says lots of different local butchers. Good for you. All right, Jennifer Marlowe, check with local butchers. Let's see what else we got here. All right, we got just me. I just question about steaks. Seattle. I got a locally. I got a side from a place called Forest Meats, which was not bad. It was a pretty decent local one. There's a number of local ones. All right, likes for the hire. Love the podcast that you do. You'll never know hunger till you're on TRT. Okay, interesting. Well, like I said, I've never taken TRT. Don't have any interest in that, to be honest, but I'll take your word at it. All right, I think the main issue is someone is missing their gallbladder and eats too much fat at one time, or nausea and or diarrhea. I'm not sure who that's response to, but yeah, I mean, when you don't have a gallbladder, you do have to be more cautious about fat. I'll just say that, but it certainly can be done, and many people do it. All right, we got Rose missing. I get reflux. All right, no sauces. All right. Well, let's see if we got some more questions coming in. Why do carnivores mostly prefer beef? If there's anything wrong with chicken or pork, or am I missing something? I just think that in many regards, beef is a more complete food. It tends to be more satiating, and a lot of that's probably primarily due to fat content. I think that's it. And I think nutritionally, beef is better than chicken. I think that's just what I find. And I just think about, like, if we go back, kind of in an evolutionary model, if we were to hunt and we had a spear, which is what the technology was up until not that long ago. We primarily hunted with spears. Hard to get a lot of meat chasing birds around with a spear, But if you can knock down an elephant, which we certainly could and did, then that's a lot of meat, a lot of red meat. So I think we're just kind of generally rewired for that. Joey Texera, hey, Dr. Shawn Baker, you changed my life. One question: what is your take on doing carnivore while having FH, familial hypercholesterolemia? I guess that's the question. I don't think it's a contraindication at all, quite honestly. I think it's I don't think it changes at all. I mean, obviously, you want to, with FH, some people with FH, not all, but some people with FH certainly have higher rates of cardiovascular disease in general population. Although there's studies out there like the Western Denmark heart study that came out in 2023. Like 60% of the people with FH had no increased risk of cardiovascular disease despite really high cholesterol levels. And so what I would say is that if you are going to pursue carnivore and you have FH, and I don't know how you manage if you're on a lipid lowering drug, it doesn't really matter. You should still monitor things with some imaging. But I think carnivore can be wonderful for reducing a whole host of risk factors, to include obesity, to include hyperglycemia, to include inflammation, to include hypertension, on and on and on. So I think it can be fine. Super Smash TV channel, Dr. Becker, I'm a big fan. I have begun to go somewhat carnivore. My body says take it slow, but I'm getting there. Thank you so much for your research. Well, I appreciate it. Good luck to you. All right, James, I am an ice hockey player, and I have been carnivore, only red meat, salt, and water for the last 18 days, but I have been having low energy in practice and workouts. Yeah, it's going to take probably a good couple months, maybe longer, maybe even 6 months to adapt to athletic performance on carnivore. Things that can help are to eat a lot. And I mean, eat a lot, like 3, 4, 5 pounds of meat a day sometimes. Stay hydrated, fluid and electrolytes. I mean, I don't know the reason for you going carnivore. Some people find that it aids in their transition to include a small amount of carbohydrates initially for workouts, and then to phase those out slowly. So those could be strategies. I didn't do that. I just kind of gritted it out and kept going, and I was fine. And then by about, I want to say 6 months after I turned 50, 6 months in, I was breaking world records, at least on the concept too. So I mean, and again, that's a very specific event, but I certainly was, well adapted by that point. Celestial Moon Soapery, beef makes me feel best. Yeah, a lot of people say that. Lizzie, week 7, should I be on vitamins like magnesium, etc.? No, not necessarily. I don't know that you need that. If there's a specific issue, specific known deficiency, then maybe. But for the most part, I don't believe that's necessary. What about lamb or goat? Yeah, they're fine. You can do lamb or goat. It's both of those are less common here in the U.S. If you're elsewhere, you might find them more readily. But it's harder to get, particularly goat is really hard to get in the U.S. I mean, you can do it, but it's not like you don't really see a lot of it in the grocery stores. You might have to go to like a especially, ethnic market or something like to get much goat. Lamb tends to make its appearance pretty regularly. Lamb is pretty pricey in the U.S., so it's kind of surprising. It's more expensive than relative to other places. Like if you go in Europe, lamb tends to be a lot cheaper than is beef. In the U.S., it's on price parity, or beef tends to be a little cheaper. All right, we got ET phone me. 6 more days and I'll be 1 year eating critters after 16 years veg head. Life is so much better now. Thank you, Dr. Baker. Well, I mean, it's always interesting when you get people that have done both, right? And they can compare. And with rare exception, I've generally seen people say that the carnivore experience was far better than the vegetable experience. So you'll be another one to add to that list. So this is a question about salt, pepper, ketchup, ranch. Do you eat your meat with sauces? Generally not. Generally, I just eat uh, maybe some salt, mostly. Rarely I'll put something else on there, but pretty much just salt. I mean, if it's good meat, well cooked, tastes pretty good on its own. I think the sauce is often disguised, poor quality meat or badly cooked meat, I think is one of the reasons a lot of these sauces are there. Let's see. Does it still need to have supplement vitamin D3, E, omega-3? Well, I don't think so. Sources of calcium on carnivore is even important to consider. Yeah, that's a really good question. So Amber O'Hearn, good friend of mine, who is quite well uh, well educated on all things carnivore. She's been doing it for about 15 years. One of the truly brightest people in this community, I would say. Wrote a paper. She published a scientific paper on the nutritional adequacy of a carnivore diet, and the only nutrient that was of concern to her was indeed calcium. Now, certainly those people that consume dairy on their carnivore diet, that's there. Some people I saw early on, like, these knuckleheads like Saladino and some of these guys suggesting that, well, humans must have eaten bones or they must have eaten eggshells. I mean, that's complete nonsense, to think that, you got to sit there and eat eggshells and bones. It's just nonsensical. And I think the reality is that calcium is generally not an issue for people on carnivore, even those that just do red meat, salt, and water. And the reason for that is a couple. One is we know that, well, there is some calcium in meat. That's clear. We know that. I mean, you need calcium. Every time your muscle contracts, calcium is being utilized. And so there is some amount of calcium in your muscles and your cells. And so when you eat animal cells, you're getting some amount of calcium. It's not super, it's not a super amount, but there's some there. We know that when your diet is higher in protein, you absorb more calcium. That's clear. That there's studies that clearly show that. So now you have an increased absorption rate. We also know that, particularly as an adult, the US RDA for calcium is probably way overestimated. And this is, believe it or not, based on some of the work of Walter Willett, of all people, who's kind of shown that. So I think that calcium for most people is not an issue. I've never seen somebody with overt calcium deficiency on this diet. That is to say, you never see anyone with serum calcium levels that are too low. Now the question would be, well, the body's going to fight to maintain those calcium levels, and you might leach some of that out in the bone. Now, what I've seen with people on carnivore diets, and I've seen a number of women, osteopenia, osteoporosis, really bad, Z-scores and so on and so forth, on DEXA scans show actually a reversal of that. So an increased deposition of bone mineral density, and that's often in absence of any significant like external source of calcium on the diet. So I don't think it's a real issue. All right, Shawn, would you do carnivore for the rest of your life? No more sweets. What I do? Again, I don't know. I mean, here I've been doing it for 8 years, right? I'm going to do it as long as I feel I get benefits from it. And as I've said many, many times, I am not religious about this diet. My diet is 99.9%, meat, beef, sometimes some eggs, fish, chicken occasionally, not much chicken, but sometimes some fish, some shrimp. Occasionally I have some dairy products. And every once in a while, my son's birthday was on November 24th. We were in Ecuador on a boat, and the chef prepared a birthday cake for him, and I had a little piece of that. So, I mean, every once in a while I'll have that, but I don't I don't crave it. I don't feel like I need it. It was okay. It was like, okay, it's a piece of cake. It wasn't anything super exciting, but I don't really miss it that much, which is it's really an interesting scenario because I used to love that stuff. I mean, I was a guy that would eat 2, 3 desserts. I mean, I would go to a restaurant, and if I couldn't decide between a red velvet cake or the lemon cheesecake or some chocolatey thing, I'd get all 3 of them. I like dessert, but funnily enough, I don't really miss it very much at all, which is, I think, really powerful. I think that's a real that shows me that sort of addiction that has so many people in its grasp has kind of released its grip on me and many other people that that have experienced this. All right, so the answer, I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to say I'm going to do it for the rest of my life because I don't know. Anything could happen. If I start getting really sick on this diet, and I need to change it. I certainly would. Up to this point, still doing well. So, and I'm happy, and I enjoy what I eat. This is the other thing. You got to enjoy what you eat. I enjoyed the hell out of the 2 ribeye steaks I had for breakfast today. I'm going to really enjoy the tri-tip that I'm going to eat here in a little bit. So I'm good. I'm happy. All right, we got Bill K. Thank you, Dr. Baker. I lost 25 pounds in 6 days, feeling wonderful. Been carnivore for 2 years. I'm glad you're doing well. Awesome. And you've been able to maintain it. That's really good. Bucket Klinger, I wonder if the pachyderma had a higher omega-3 profile since they are snorting around in the water. I don't know. I mean, the wild animal omega-3 ratio is a little bit higher ratio. I mean, the absolute amount is not very high. I mean, you're not getting a lot of omega-3 or omega-6 from animal products. It's just small amounts. If you're really, really concerned about omega-3, you could have literally like one bite, one mouthful of fish a week, and that would like totally ramp it up more than grass finished meat or anything like that. So if that's the real concern, you can take care of it that way. I don't know that's that big of a concern, to be honest. I mean, as far as whether you should eat this meat or that meat. Tobias Fectmar, if the lack of vitamin C isn't what causes scurvy, then what does? Well, I do think vitamin C has a principal role in scurvy. Um, I don't know what this is. This is like, I guess somebody gave me a little TV, Super Smash TV channel. I was just like a little thank you thing. Thank you, appreciate that. Um, so we know that, for instance, vitamin C, or I'm sorry, scurvy was cured by fresh meat. That goes back 100 plus years to the time of Shackelford and some of the polar explorers. They were exploring the North and the South Pole. So we know that. We know that fresh meat was the answer. The reason the sailors got scurvy is because they didn't have access to fresh meat. They had dried meat and they had a bunch of hardtack, so high carb diet. So I think what's going to most likely give you the most likely reason you're going to get scurvy is a a high carbohydrate diet and the absence of fresh food. That's going to be the biggest driver of scurvy. In the modern cases we see scurvy, which are very rare, that's usually the scenario. It's usually somebody's eating junk food, no fresh food at all, and they get scurvy. We have a number of compensatory mechanisms in a relatively low vitamin C state if we're not eating a high carb diet that can take over. I don't want to go into a whole long litany of that, but I've talked about this in extent. But I mean, the bottom line is people on carnivore diet are not getting scurvy. That's just clearly not happening. Um, all right, Ellen Turner, we're talking about long-term carnivores and eating an appendectomy, 4 years, and I need an appendectomy. Well, here's the answer. Believe it or not, we often associate appendectomies with childhood. You got a kid, um, and they get their appendix removed. It often happens in childhood, but surprisingly, there is a large number of adults every year that just need their appendix out for various reasons. Doesn't matter what diet they're on. And I think the rate, and I've heard of a couple of people on carnivore having appendectomies. Probably, I have personal knowledge of three or four maybe over the years. You'd be maybe the fifth one. I don't think it's occurring in carnivores at any higher rate than anyone else. In fact, I think it's probably lower. But if you just go look up, Google for yourself, what are the appendicitis rates in adults, and you'll see that every year, a certain percentage of the population gets their appendix out as an adult, and I think it's probably coincidental more than anything. Bum, 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 bum. I'm gonna keep pushing through. Sometimes I fast 24 hours and we have 48 games of hockey. That must be a typo. So, anyway, well, I mean, yeah, good for you. But humongous thoughts on needing insulin response. Thoughts on needing insulin response. I don't understand that question. Sorry, you might have to rephrase that. We obviously need insulin to be alive. If you don't have insulin, I mean, this is what happens to a type 1 diabetic with no insulin, right? They end up just wasting away to nothing. They starve to death because you have to have some insulin to get nutrition into your cells, right? That's whether it's fat, whether it's protein, whether it's glucose. So insulin is absolutely vital for survival. Without it, you will die. So I'm not sure exactly how you want what that is. Lamb is fabulous because of the high fat. Yeah, fatty lamb can be really good. Like lamb thigh is really nice. I've had some really good. I've got some good lamb over the years. Some really good lamb in Iceland. I had some really good lamb in Los Angeles a few weeks ago. A friend of mine took me to a restaurant called Avra, and it was just outstanding. The lamb chops were like some of the best I can remember having. So, all right, have you heard about the drone situation? Yeah, a little bit, Some drones hovering around, I think New Jersey or something like that. Some people, I saw some guy, the drone manufacturer guy, saying that they might be trying to search out something, maybe radiation or gas leak or something like that. I don't know. I mean, I don't know enough about it to really comment intelligently, but I'm kind of tangentially aware of that. We got Harindra MR. Thanks from India. You're welcome. There's a lot of carnivores in India now, which is kind of cool to see. You can do that, and certainly you can do that with mutton and goat and seafood and chicken and all those types of things. If you can't do beef. We got men guarding their own wallets. Question about cramping on carnivore, and asking about how much sodium or salt you should take. It might, it certainly that could be part of the issue. Could be an electrolyte issue. Could be magnesium. Could be something along those lines. Potassium, perhaps. And so it probably makes sense to supplement that. Some people will take, up to, I've seen some people take as much as 10 grams of salt a day. I think just as important to realize is that a lot of people that develop cramps, it's often secondary to just not getting enough food. And that's something that I see. A lot of people are losing weight, they're working out, their weight's coming down. And a lot of times, if their nutrition is not meeting their needs, they'll sometimes develop cramps. And so I think that's something to be mindful. There's also, like eating really lean. I mean, one of the things, I don't know if you guys remember when creatine first came out, the supplement creatine. Creatine was notorious for causing cramps, or that was one of the thoughts it was. And so it might be that, if you're eating really lean, not enough fat, and your creatine levels are, you're consuming a lot of lean protein, that might also be a problem for that. So just be mindful of those types of things. Where can I order the knife you use in your videos? Well, I've got several knives that I use. I can tell you the ones off the top of my head. I know one of the knives, the black one I use is from oh, what the hell's the name of it now? That I'm blanking on it. Dalstrong. Dalstrong is that one. I got a nice one from a company called Forged. No, Forge, like an iron forge, forge2table.com. They make these really nice, kind of like Japanese style steel blades. Super, super nice. I got a nice Damascus steel Bowie knife from Cry Knives out of Canada. One of them was just a little Costco cheapie from Kangshan. And I think do I have one more? Oh, I got one more as a gift, and I have no idea who manufactured that one. It was a really big, heavy ass thing, weighs like 5 friggin' pounds. It's ridiculous. But yeah, those are some of the ones I would look at. All right, do drink good quality milk. That's Johnny saying that. Um, James, when I get 6 months carnivore, I'd love to do a podcast. I'm going to talk about my experience in hockey. Always listening to athletes. Sure. Hit me up when you get there. We get New Zealand lamb and better prices than beef. I know, right? Yeah, interesting. All right, we got Haren back in India. Been following you and transitioned to carnivore a month ago and feeling fantastic. 18-hour fasting. I have proteinuria and have been recommended to go carnivore. Loving it. Ira recommend. Oh, Ira did. Okay, say hi to Ira for me. Yeah, they're doing really good work over there. Hope you got to the Galapagos when you were there. I did. I did go to the Galapagos. It was wonderful. Really interesting. Interesting little place of the world. Really, I never thought I would have been. Um, uh, you know, been there. Cake could be healthy if you make it yourself with healthy ingredients. Yeah, I mean, I guess. I mean, it depends on what it is. I mean, it's still cake. I wouldn't. I think cake should be reserved for special occasions. We now turn we now turn every meal into a oh wow, Bitcoin 106,000. Goodness, I was looking. I got a notice on my phone that Bitcoin hit another all-time high at 106K. That's pretty good. Um, yeah, but I mean, I think cake should be reserved for something you eat pretty infrequently. Does protein in the urine mean kidney failure? It certainly can mean that, but doesn't necessarily mean that. So it's like I said, it's one of the. It can be a marker of failing kidneys, but it doesn't always mean that. All right. All right. All right. What else we got here? We got some Dr. Fung, kidney health and promotes keto. What's for dinner? I'm gonna have a little tri-tip from that I've got. Do you eat watermelon? I do not. Mike Hunt. I thought the addicted tone was a trans surgery. I'm not sure what that's about. Anyway, currently reading your book. This is Blake Sartain. I saw you went to Texas Tech. I'm originally from Lubbock. Cool to see someone so close to home. Um, Yeah, I knew a guy named Jimmy Sartain, same spelling as you, a friend of mine when I was in University of Texas. I don't know if you're related to him, but it's a kind of an unusual name. But I think he might have went in, maybe he became an engineer. I'm not sure what happened to Jimmy. But anyway, yeah, awesome. All right, guys, I'm going to probably shut this one down because I got to eat. It's getting cold out. It's getting dark. Appreciate you guys. And my phone's about to die. So anyway, you guys take care. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.